Hello everyone, so good to see you. So, I've been a Tales fan for like 20 years now. Yeah, Tales of Symphonia came out in the West in July of 2004, and since then, the series has become one of my favorites ever. Tales has kind of experienced waves of popularity outside of Japan. While it's super celebrated out there, the popularity can wane in other regions, and so we don't exactly get every single release as we would a Final Fantasy, for example. There are a lot of Tales games outside of Symphonia that never released stateside, and I've also explored various titles that came before it. And one game in particular released a single year after Symphonia and only in Japan, called Tales of Rebirth. So they're all developed by Namco Tales Studio, and the team who worked on Tales of Eternia took on the challenge of adapting the series to 3D with Symphonia. It was the big Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time for the series, you see. Rebirth, however, was done by a section of the studio called Team Destiny, who, unsurprisingly, worked on Tales of Destiny and its sequel. They were more focused on the 2D Tales titles. But somewhere in this development cycle, with the success of Tales of Symphonia, there seemed to be plans to bring Rebirth overseas as well. In the same month of the release of Tales of Symphonia out here in North America, IGN stated that Rebirth was the most likely candidate for an English localization due to the positive reception the series was now getting. And it makes sense. Series does well, you translate it and get said series out to more people. That's how you keep the momentum going. But sadly, that just didn't happen. You see, at the time, Symphonia would have been for the people that own a GameCube, and Rebirth would have gone to owners of the PlayStation 2. It's kind of a miracle that the GameCube got anything. Like, there are 5 Tales of games for the PlayStation 2, not all localized. We did get Tales of Legendia and Tales of the Abyss, but in the long run, we missed out on some really great titles like the Tales of Destiny remake and director's cut, and of course, Tales of Rebirth. So what did we do? We waited, and something just, I don't know, something just happened, but Bandai Namco just really can't let go of Tales of Symphonia. I love the game, don't get me wrong, it's probably one of my most completed games ever, but man, we could have stopped a couple of remastered releases ago. We could have put the manpower to translate another game and release it from its overseas prison. It's good to preserve and make these titles available for people who can get easily exposed to the series now, of course, but I just want more, man. Which is why I am so thankful that there are people out there who love these games. They love them and have the talent, the patience, the technical know-how to just do it themselves. Some of my favorite games in recent memory have been, in fact, fan translations. Pokemon Trading Card Game 2, The Invasion of Team Great Rocket, that almost came to the Game Boy Color, but it was held back because the Game Boy Advance was coming out, and that translation, that was excellent. I love that game so much, despite how much harder it is from the original trading card game. One of the most famous examples, Mother 3, probably the best fan translation of all time for the sheer amount of work that goes into adapting the writing and humor for an overseas audience. It's just masterfully done. I could go on listing several, but in the interest of time, the footage that you've been watching is very special. Life Bottle Productions, which is a group and community of people dedicated to Tales fan translations, hacks, texture mods, what have you, they just very recently released an English translation patch for Tales of Rebirth. And you know, there are projects that get like maybe a chapter or a section of the game translated. There might be menu options or other assets that are still in Japanese. No, this is a full translation. You can play the entire game, loaded with text as a JRPG would be, mind you, from start to finish. And as far as I know, every menu selection, the glossary, skits, every little hidden bit of text is there, and it is a wonder to behold. Tales of Rebirth is a story about 2 different people, the Huma, which are humans like you and I, and the Gajima, which are the beast people. Your main character is Vague Lumberg, a Huma who can utilize the power of force and command ice. He is quite an interesting main character. He has a strong attachment to the character Claire Bennett, and if you're in the Tales community, if there is one thing that you probably know about Tales of Rebirth, it's Vague's sheer dedication to this woman. Fun facts, you might have immediately recognized the voice if you play The Legend of Zelda. Vague is voiced by the legendary Nobuyuki Hiyama, who is the voice of Adult Link as heard in Ocarina of Time, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and Soul Calibur 2. He also voiced the hero of Dragon Quest III in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is a character I'm sure many more of us are now familiar with given the release of the remake. If you've ever wondered what Adult Link would sound like speaking, this might give you an idea. Vague is very solemn and a man of few words most of the time. The plot revolves around an event in which a king caused the power of force to awaken and go out of control in many people around the world, in both the Huma and the Gajima. It was a pretty brutal event and caused many accidents that day, including Vague encasing Claire unexpectedly in a pillar of ice. 1 year passes and you happen upon meeting both Mao and Eugene, who come looking for Vague and assist in breaking Claire out of an icy prison. It isn't very long until conflict arises again and Claire is stolen away by some of the most powerful force users in the kingdom. This jumpstarts the trio to set off and find where she is and why she was stolen in the first place. I don't want to reveal too much more beyond that for those who want to jump into the game themselves for the first time and try it out. It's honestly something of a time capsule now. There is a lot of that nostalgic feeling of an old Tales game when playing this, and it feels right at home alongside a game like Tales of Symphonia. The music being done by Motoi Sakuraba definitely helps. This is an era which I think he really shined in. The man was busy with Tales back then. Your first main battle theme, called Battle Organization, instantly became one of my favorites when I first heard it on the PSP. That is one of the best battle themes and I won't hear any arguments telling me otherwise. The skits also look really good here. Instead of being inside these little boxes, the characters have half-body portraits akin to what we would find in more modern Tales games like Berseria, or heck, even Graces. They are kind of aggressive though, as in there are constantly a lot of skits, some which are very short and serves as a constant reminder of where to go next. They were still figuring out the pacing back in these early days, so I can kind of forgive them for that. It's so wild, man. We hardly got any Tales of Rebirth exposure here out in the West. Tales of the World Radiant Mythology is a sort of class-based dungeon crawler mixed with several Tales characters interacting with each other. It was very cool for that. But the only characters from Rebirth were Eugene and Annie, who isn't even playable. Not even the main character of the game. They fixed the roster a lot in the sequel by adding Vague and Mao, but we never saw a localized version of Radiant Mythology 2 or 3. And for those who sought it out, you can fight Vague, Riala, and Kohaku in the cameo battle in Tales of Graces. Look, he's in 3D and speaks English. Boy, hits like a truck though. I love the cameo appearances in this series. Localizations of the series aside, the Tales of franchise offers some of the best displays of fan service to their longtime fans. Tales of Rebirth released on both the PS2 and then a port on the PSP in 2008, one of the last 2D entries in the Tales series. You've already noticed, but unlike most Tales games in the series that you may have played, nearly the entire game is done with sprite work. To some, this is the ideal look for Tales games, particularly in battle. The mix of 2D sprites with 3D effects and backgrounds is an art style that has endured and is still popular 2 decades later. It is glorious. The battle system is your classic Tales action-based focus on real-time combat. But you know what they did? They had battles take place on 3 lanes. Anyone who's familiar with classic Fatal Fury might feel right at home with this 3-lane 2D battle system. As with most Tales games, combat is fairly simple, but introduces new arts and special moves gradually, so as to not overwhelm you with everything all at once. Early on, there's not a lot of battles happening, which I was totally fine with because I was just more entranced of the idea of playing this game at all, as if the Tales series never skipped a beat. The translated script of this game has been out for like over a decade, which made it possible to play the game, but obviously not ideal. It's not as simple as going into the game files and copy-pasting some dialogue. There's a lot more technical engineering involved to implement a new language and also to make it look natural. This is the 0.9 release, meaning there's obviously some imperfections and bugs, among other things that will be fine-tuned as time goes on. But this, as it is right now, it is absolutely playable in its current state. And the gameplay is so dynamic. You have options like activating the rush gauge, which increases your attack while lowering your defense, and the game does away with TP in favor of the force gauge. I won't get too overly technical here, but like with Tales of Graces, there is a system that allows you to do special attacks and arts outside of the arguably outdated TP system. It really lets the real-time action-based combat shine. It's all about momentum here. Once you obtain more arts in the game, you are constantly given the choice of attacking and rushing your opponents down with increased offense and lower defense, or falling back to defense as the situation calls for it. But by using more advanced arts with greater cooldown, you open yourself up for longer as your defense plummets. By activating Overlimit, you can use arts at max power with minimal cooldown, but you won't even be able to heal yourself. Conversely, by shifting to a recovery mode, your rush is reduced, and while the cooldown of your arts becomes very slow, you can now heal more effectively. However, with low rush, your guard becomes easier to break. See, with every moment in battle, every single action, you have to consider your situation, offense versus defense, and make decisions while quickly adapting. You can also augment and enhance your weapons and armor, giving them extra abilities to compound your fighting style depending on what parameters you choose to upgrade. It's a fairly straightforward system on the surface, which has a lot of depth the more you engage with it. And I'm sorry that the very early game footage here like this doesn't quite do the game justice. The constant pull between risk versus reward makes the battle system of Tales of Rebirth, upon learning its intricacies in the later game, one of the most satisfying battle systems in the series. I've been sort of casually following this for years. Light Bottle Productions has been working on this for a long time. The first attempts at English translations were, I want to say, maybe 13 years or so ago. The translation jobs of various Tales games have passed hands through multiple individuals and groups. And we've seen more beyond this come into fruition, another being Tales of Destiny Director's Cut. And you know, we're in a unique place right now. With the announcement of Tales of Graces F Remastered, we've been promised even more with the remastered project now a thing. It is more likely that titles that were already translated into English are going to be the ones to get remastered, Tales of Exilia being the top candidate as of right now. But hey, you really never know. The PlayStation Vita got Tales of Hearts R, which is only translated in its script while retaining the Japanese voiceover. Sadly, Rebirth is kind of sitting in a place where I can't imagine Bandai Namco would give it priority over other games. I think it's more likely that we would see the Tales of Destiny Director's Cut before Rebirth. And that's a shame! I've heard people claiming that this is amongst their top 3 Tales games, for its story, its characters, and dynamic battle system. If you want to find out how to play this game for yourself, you will need some tools like a PS2 emulator and other assets. If you look up Life Bottle Productions, you can find information, tutorials, their Discord server, a whole bunch of resources. If you love the series, I highly encourage that you give this your attention. Thank you so much to everyone on the team that made this possible. I'm not a translator, but I know that it's an endeavor to make something like this happen, and what I've played has been excellent. You all should be proud, and I hope that plenty of people can see this and know just how much this contribution means to the community. Because as I mentioned, I don't see Namco getting to a localization anytime soon. Well, there you have it. Do you think you'll give Tales of Rebirth with an English translation a shot? Is there a specific Tales title that you would like to see localized or be part of the remastered project? If they really don't do Tales of the Abyss remade or remastered, I'm gonna majinkin them right in the face. Anyways, stay safe out there and beware random encounters. Till we meet again.